Kā nākamos es gribētu aicināt mūsu kolēģis no Igaunijas, Pihva Kuline un Georgs Kīns, kas padalīsies savā pieredzē, kā ir būt papīra restaurātoram, kā kļūt, vai varbūt arī nekļūt. Paldies!
Hello, my name is Küllike Pihkva. I have been working for the National Archives of Estonia as a paper conservator since 1999. Also, when needed, I teach conservation students at Pallas since 2016. Educating future conservators is a great responsibility because the experience they get should lead them to gain future professional identity as a conservator.
Hello, my name is Gregor. I'm a fourth year student in Baltic University. I study in leather design department and specialize in conservation. The objective of our preservation is preparation for being a conservator. The first part of the presentation is giving an overall description and the possibility to gain our specific education in Estonia. More precisely, the structure of the studies and practice system of teaching conservators, restorers at the Baltic University of Applied Science will be introduced. The second part of our presentation focuses mainly on students' views and perceptions of conservation and their own opinions of preparing for a conservator professional role. We will be showing summarized opinions of students, and you can read them on the screen later. In Estonia, there are only two higher educational institutes where one is able to acquire a primary level certification as a conservator. In Tallinn, the Academy of Estonia of Arts, Estonia Academy of Arts, and higher education institute, as you can acquire the primary level certification with 3-year studies, and in Tartu at Pallas University of Applied Sciences you can acquire it in 4 years. Pallas graduates are usually known for their good manual skills. Students provide the necessary competitive for working in a certain profession or for continuing in master studies levels. In Pallas, there are only 3 departments from 7, where one can choose the conservatory restoration specialization. Although we are in minority, quite often the conservatory restoration students contribute by serving in the school student council.
Well, when teaching the vocation, not only certain professional terms, methods and treatments should be taught, but also the ability to see the bigger picture, the ability to analyze the steps being planned, and a sense of constructive criticism. Paraphrasing the proverb, a chain is only as strong as its weakest link. Effective teaching, conservation is a teamwork. The student, school, and practice space should cooperate. Sure, the idea of becoming a conservator requires a lot of learning from the student. And sure, the conservation lab, the student's practice space, is not the place where the students meet first time special materials, equipment, and methods. If so, then that kind of experience makes them rather confused, as putting too big pressure on students. Unfortunately, starting with a new group, far too often I had to start from the scratch, from damage, basic treatments, and tools. The main task is to find and feed students' curiosity. The contemporary principles of education value a student's cognitive, emotional, and social dimensions. The learning environment cannot be underestimated. as well as the vocational teachers' inner willingness to share their knowledge again and again. The educational institution should pay attention to making students the beginners in the professional field full of hope and willingness. But how to measure the effectiveness of teaching and learning? For example, the level of motivation of students can be surveyed. If their level of internal motivation increases during their studies, an upcoming increase within the community of conservators can be expected. But is enough attention paid to the effects of teaching and teaching basic values? Does effectively teaching a profession at school also require special skills, like professional didactical and pedagogical preparation? The answer might be found in the questionnaire of students' opinions. Let us see that in the second part of today's presentation. And I'm really glad that the first presentation today had a sentence. A conservator must be able to. So it's the same that our presentation is focusing on. But at first, let's have a look. Let's have a look at the modern teaching theory. It's blue on the screen. Indeed, the competence requirements for conservators include not only their set of skills and knowledge, but also include values, their attitude towards the profession, colleagues, and items being treated. This, of course, does not have to mean that there should not be creativity, a cooperative atmosphere, positivity, and support during their studies. Oppositely, those should be involved in both the teaching and learning process when educating conservators. That survey recently performed among lecturers teaching conservation at Pallas showed that their identity themselves more as conservators than a teacher, or they carry the hybrid identity of conservator and teacher. Me too. As there are only some students that have chosen conservation restoration in Pallas, it can be said that learning is personalized. That resembles the traditional way of becoming a master from a beginner. And it is efficient because it encourages students to be demanding initiators. Today, a self-regulated student is pretty active and taking responsibility for the results and their personal development of skills and knowledge. And for example, sustainability is a topic that is often initiated by students themselves, I heard from Gregor. And of course, also feedback is important. The keywords creating that kind of atmosphere are definitely respect, dedication, self-discipline, cooperation and collaboration, and trust. Coming back to the teaching theory, spiral teaching and active teaching are effective, despite sometimes being pretty similar to fishing, because especially in the beginning, you can't know what you can get. Which emotion, reaction, feedback, or result you can get or bump into. When students start their studies at school, in my paper conservation subjects, learning in the beginning, when we start treatments on paper, often takes place in the form of playing. That not only provides excitement, but also good technical and manual preparation. In fact, they need it for passing the advanced courses when students are trusted to conserve the original objects in the real conservation lab. Collaboration between students inside the working groups is the best that could happen. If it did not happen at the beginning of the object, it is a goal to reach. On the screen, you can see fragments from students' final work from our addressing material conservation subjects. I'm really glad one of the authors of that presentation is today here. Solutions, agreements, and the consensus found by students during their discussions and collaboration are valuable. The linking of subjects and integrated teaching using spiral learning is safe and encouraging for students and increases their ability to be flexible and open-minded. One successful way of learning is when students create learning materials on their own. And if we have time later, we show a little bit more about that photo illustrated material. It's a real material that students have created. And the explanations are different ways to explain what happened and why happened or why the damage happened. It's something that is really impressive for me also, because they did it by themselves. And thank you. It was the first part of the presentation. And it happened last year that one young man from furniture department attended my paper conservation subject without being learned anything from paper before. And later I asked how it was. And he said, really interesting, because the students understand very clearly that they need knowledge about different materials. So, and it wasn't impossible. And now Gregor continues.
Now we will be presenting a brief overview of our questionnaire answers, which consist of perception and opinions of the learning conservatory restoration students and the last 4 years graduates. The results were obtained using the electronic questionnaire. 6 questions were the open questions, so extended response was expected. 1 question was simple yes or no question, and the 8th question was in reserve for additional comments. On the screen, you can see the numbers of respondents and the representatives from the target group. The number of respondents was surprisingly small. The present and previous conservatory restoration students' perceptions and opinions were asked on the following and gained results. Most of the respondents had only general understanding of professional conservation restoration before their studies. On the other hand, the source from where they gained their primary idea about the profession varied considerably.
We'll let you read a bit, some more seconds.
Also, their expectation varied greatly. Some expected to find a new intriguing field of activity. Some wanted to complete their studies in a profession with professional standard. And some expected or hoped that the work of conservator is a precise scientific work. Perspective changes. Most of the respondents were positively and enforceably affected by both outer and inner factors during their studies. 3 first-year students didn't have opinion on this matter. Visits and practice at conservation restorers' workplaces gave a real insight into the profession of the labor market. Also, the students made it very clear that before becoming a conservatory restorer, one needs a profound theoretical and practical study. Motivation level. It can be said that respondents had analyzed themselves before giving responses, as both inner and outer factors of motivation have been mentioned. Most respondents' motivation levels increased during their studies, even if it was caused by the fact that effort had been done. Definitely, students grow professionally when their inner motivation is increasing. Professional attitude forms when students feel support and starts being aware that every member of the group has to take responsibility and take care of their personal development. Even if some hesitation had arisen, it shows that the students have been taking their studies seriously. And as theory says, nowadays the learner is a self-regulating student and taking responsibility for the result. Knowledge, experience, and skills. As it is seen on the screen, respondents have given very detailed responses about their preparation for entering the professional field. Summary of one respondent perfectly nailed it, that the respondent realistically assessed the situation. Despite there is a variety of variants presented, one common factor was shown that the importance of practice is mentioned. Satisfaction with studies and practice. Hesitations is a good thing, showing that the student is analyzing their study. Demanding and the other thing is demandingness is a good way to move forward to the real professionalism. It shows that the student wants the professionalism and he wants the knowledge and the practical skills. Satisfaction with studies and practice. Plenty of really good observations were submitted. Main characteristic of nowadays students is a high-level motivation and self-management. The fact that the integration of subjects is mentioned by respondents shows their attitude and dedication. Indeed, getting feedback is important for conscious learning. Being thirsty for knowledge and skill shows that there is a big potential for forming a future professional identity as a conservatory restorer. This makes us incredibly demanding of the content, methods, and tools for learning. Today, students is demanding and knows what to expect for a professional development. At the time of filling out the survey, first-year students had received mainly general, not specialty subjects. Maybe that's why some respondents were a bit confused. Suggestions for the school. 14 respondents had suggestions. One respondent did not have a suggestion only because I'm gonna reference it because I hope for a soon coming change at school, and 3 respondents did not give any responses to the question. Suggestions for school and the present future students. Again, the list of suggestions is long and profound. The social aspect is important. The following keywords can be easily noticed. Specialization, changes, modernize, linking, adequacy, joint studying, practice, cooperation, communication, marketing, green study, and learning from mistakes. And the 7th question was to become or not to become a conservator. Mainly the respondent answered yes, and I also want to become a conservator after I graduate, but the hardest part is in the head because finding a job as a conservator in Estonia is really hard at the moment. And the 8th question, the respondents' comments. Take our students with you to good succession worth following. I wish I could. I would love that more of our students could come here and take part of this concert.
So, it was an overview of the questionnaire. Honestly, I do not worry about the future of our profession since we have students like those respondents. I'm really glad that some of my former students have become my colleagues and counterparts despite the fact that it is not the easiest task to find a job in the conservation field in Estonia, just like Gregor said. But this situation is similar to the situation in the whole of Europe, unfortunately. But the fact that one has graduated from Pallas is a good starting point for applying for the position of a conservator in both private and governmental institutions. But is there a need for contemporary education for educating future conservators? Yes, it is needed. The present situation in the labor market is a conservation field supports studying to be a conservator. A generation of conservators has started to retire, and that trend is increasing year by year. Conclusions. The quality of the teaching methods, material, and the equipment when teaching conservator is a key. Just like the legitimate expectations for studying safely in a supported atmosphere, as well as the ability to communicate, analyze, and discuss when planning treatments, methods, and choosing material. Best practices straight from conservation specialists support the education system. It helps students to acquire a professional identity as future conservator. But just like inside every profession, inside the conservation field, some changes have happened and will happen. Choose. Changes in the current curriculum are unavoidable. This is also the case with the applied higher education study programs at Pallas. In the soon coming future, the curriculum is being modernized. Hopefully, the results of the survey will provide useful information to the school for making necessary changes. Because conservation restoration students do need some support at the beginning of their long and challenging but incredibly interesting journey in the conservation field. And our special thanks belongs to respondents of the questionnaire. Only 25% gave the response, and probably they were the most motivated soon coming conservators. And also we are very thankful to other people who helped us. So thank you.